Hello and welcome to this definitive review and analysis of a cult classic movie, Conan the Barbarian. Conan the Barbarian is a 1982 epic sword and sorcery film directed by John Milius. The central character, as the title states, is a barbarian named Conan. Sole survivor of his tribe, Conan goes through a hard journey to become a formidable brawny gladiator, a thief, and a mercenary. His path will eventually lead him to exact revenge on Thulsa Doom, the evil wizard who killed his parents. The film is inspired by the literary work of Robert Ervin Howard that was published in the American pulp magazine Weird Tales between 1932 and 1936. At the time of its release, the film received mixed reviews from critics and audiences alike. However, it became a commercial success and helped launch Arnold Schwarzenegger's movie career. Before going forward, let's get this straight and address the elephant in the room. The movie is not by any means a faithful adaptation of Howard pulp character and short stories. John Milius only borrowed bits and hints from the source material and managed to deliver a similar yet different versions of the character. The original Conan fans and purists do not consider it as canon, and they are right. However, as movie adaptations go, it's the closest we did get, until now. So, why did I start my movie reviews with this film? Well, it has a special place in my heart. Mainly because it led me to discover Marvel Comics adaptations, and later on, Howard books and Frazetta's imagery. Truth is, I do like Howard's gritty vision and powerful prose, but I also like Milius' vision for what it is. I'm conscious that I might be totally biased towards it, but it's for a reason. As far as I can remember, I was 8 years old, and Conan the Barbarian was the first movie I saw on a VHS. God, I feel old, but what an era. Side note, people my age would certainly remember the sexy act of putting a black cassette into the slit of the VHS machine and gently pushing that rewind button, then sitting back, legs twitching, shaking patiently, waiting for the moaning videotape to roll back and spurt its wonderful images. Okay, stop. Jokes aside, I honestly have no memory of any given movie I saw up to that point. As all the kids of my generation, I only watched cartoons and mostly played football outside. I remember we just moved out to a new house and neighborhood. A month later, my father had bought a VHS player. So one afternoon, my oldest brother came back with a cassette, and then we sat down and watched it with our father. None of us, especially me, expected what will come out of this. Now, I realize what an impact it had on me at such a young age. I grew up to be a crazy psychopath with long greasy hair, wandering the streets in loincloth, invoking chrome at each turn and hacking people with a big ass sword. Nah, it didn't happen. There is no such thing, unless you're already beep in the head. In actuality, the impact I was talking about is that bonding moment between fathers and sons, a shared cinematic experience. It was a memorable day. Something happened. That movie changed me. I've never seen anything like it. Those visuals and that atmosphere were haunting. I've never seen a muscular hero fighting snakes and wizards. I discovered the curves of beautiful women, the strength of female warriors, and the unforgettable score of Basil Poledouris. His music just elevated the movie to a whole new level. The least that can be said is that it was an immersive experience. I spent the first week after that half naked, swinging a wood stick through the air, imagining myself fighting snakes and wizards, at the amusement of my father and the annoyance of my mother. I guess this is when I got the cinema virus in my bones, and a deep love and appreciation for fantasy stories and illustration. As a kid, This was my favorite movie of all time. Now, as an adult, it is one of my favorite movies. With age and a little bit of cultural maturity, you realize that it is not a perfect movie. However, it is still an underrated masterpiece, and you love it for what it is and what it offered you as a child. In retrospective, one can say that it is a cult classic film with its strengths and weaknesses that, in my humble opinion, still holds up very well against today's most expensive and sophisticated fantasy movies. There is something about it, some mysterious aura and profound elements that make it so appealing. It's not mere blood and violence, as some might think, and this for many reasons we shall discuss and analyze later. For now, let's briefly compare the film's weaknesses and strengths. As I mentioned before, the film is not a faithful adaptation of Howard's stories and character. Add to this, Arnold's accent and stiff acting might throw people off. And compared to today's sophisticated CGI, the movie VFX seems quite old and outdated. Despite all of this, the film has a strong philosophical theme and an enticing story. It relies on epic visual storytelling with scarce but unforgettable dialogues. It has a dark, moody atmosphere, great costume and set design that gives authenticity to the ancient world. Paul Duris' amazing and bombastic soundtrack makes it even better. Oh, and some nice boobies here and there. Conan the Barbarian is deceptively a revenge story, but unlike the stupid 2011 reboot, John Milius made it much more than that. He's no hack, he's a well-read, smart, talented writer. He's the guy that wrote Apocalypse Now and Jeremiah Johnson. But we need to give due to someone else. Milius actually built his story over Oliver Stone's mad script. Stone had a vision, but it was too expensive and visually impossible to make at the time. Stone's story was set in a post-apocalyptic future where Conan leads an army in a massive battle against a horde of 10,000 mutants. Stone combined several short stories in his script. He mainly took inspiration from Howard's Black Colossus and A Witch Shall Be Born. Milius retained several sequences and elements from Stone's script and refashioned them to his liking. He kept the first quarter of the script and discarded the latter. He also kept the best Conan dialogue, for example, Chrome Prayer. So let's look closer and compare both scripts to see how they differ and how Milius rewrote Stone's screenplay and went into another direction. Okay, let's start with the first page and the opening sequence. The consensus is that Stone, in his first draft, set the story in a post-apocalyptic future, and Milius changed it and set it in the past, but I think it's a misconception. As Stone wrote, the maps of present-day Europe starts to crumble and new land masses appear. People reading this might think it's happening in the future, but it's not. Simply because, as we read on, he does specify that the map of the ancient kingdom arises, and mentions Sumeria as the old Europe. If the story indeed happened in the future, it stands to reason and logic that he would say new kingdoms and not ancient one. So we can assume that the sequence was meant to be a VFX, a back-in-time visual device to show that the Hyborian Age is in fact our world, but only ancient. As we see, Milius rewrote this and made it simple, clear and concise, and most of all, not costly. No more animated maps, only a primitive map painted on animal hides. To inform us that the Hyborian kingdoms belong to an ancient age, he smartly added Howard's famous Nemedian Chronicles as a voiceover, something Stone overlooked. Conan comes back to the village and joins his mother and father, who gift him a sword. Milius again smartly shortened this scene. Visually present Conan family and the forging of the sword in the beginning title. Right after that, he introduces the theme of the Riddle of Steel. The second scene in both scripts is the raid on the Cimmerian tribe by armored riders. While Milius introduces the evil Thulsa Doom who kills Conan's mother and makes him a slave, Stone do not dwell on the raid aftermath and the children's slavery. Right away, he shows us that Conan, now a man, has broken free from his chains and is running away chased by wolves. Milius, in his script, add the Wheel of Pain sequence where Conan, sole survivor, will grow to be a strong, muscular man. Then the Pith, or the gladiator's fight sequence, followed by the learning of language and sword mastery. In Stone's script, after the wolf chase, Conan meets the witch that will inform him about Doom's cult and tries to kill him. He then travels through the land and arrives to Shadizar city. It is only in page 18 that Milius shows Conan being freed from his bond and traveling through the steppes. He uses Stone's wolf chase scene and follows it by the giant's cave scene, where Conan will retrieve the Atlantean sword. At Shadizar, in a tavern, Conan asks about the Stygian Tower he noticed when he entered the city. Stone here introduces Princess Yasmina and her brother, King Prospero, who is dying of a mysterious illness. It is revealed that it is Taramis, Yasmina's evil twin sister, once believed dead but now quite alive. In page 21, after the giant's cave scene, Milius uses the witch's hut sequence and introduces Subutai, who will become Conan's friend and helper. In Stone's script, at page 33, Conan arrives at the Stygian Tower and meets Taurus, another thief. They climb the tower, but Taurus is attacked by a man-like creature. Conan, after a ferocious fight, kills it. In Milius' script, page 29, Conan and Subutai debate about Crom and other gods. Then they travel to finally arrive to Shadizar city. In Stone's script, the priest Valthemos warns Princess Yasmina about Set and the sorcerer Thulsa Doom. In the meantime, Conan finds and steals the Stone of Set, a jewel guarded by a gigantic serpent. It is only in page 39 that Milius introduces the Tower of Set sequence. Here, Conan and Subutai will meet Valeria, a female thief and warrior. At this point, both scripts describe Conan fighting the giant snake and escaping the Stygian Tower. After this sequence, the two scripts go on different directions. Milius discarded most of Stone's last sequences but retained and rearranged few pivotal scenes and dialogues. Like the next scene, the love yurt where Conan and Valeria hook up. In Stone's script, Princess Yasmina, after meeting with priest Valthemos, heads back to her palace, but is attacked by kidnappers. Conan saves her. Unaware that she is a princess, he tries to kiss her. After the love scene, Conan, Valeria, and Subutai are captured by soldiers and brought to King Osric's palace. The king has no love for Set cult. Admiring their boldness, he asks them to go to Doom's Mountain of Power and bring his daughter back. Conan accepts, but he is more than anything seeking revenge. He leaves Valeria and Subotai and travels through the steppe looking for Doom's cult in his mountain of power. Princess Yasmina takes Conan to her palace and hires him. Later, Taramis takes her sister place and with the help of Thulsa Doom and his mutants kills all the faithful soldiers, nobles and priests. In Milius' script, Conan arrives to the Mounds of Kings and meets the Good Wizard. The next day he heads to the Mountain of Power, but he is unfortunately captured by Doom's men. Doom, before ordering to crucify him, reveals to him the Riddle of Steel. Flesh is stronger than steel. In Stone's script, Conan intervenes and realizes that it is not Princess Yasmina. He fights several mutants, but he is ultimately bested by Brock, their brutal leader. The traitor Volmeno gives order to crucify him. Here, in both scripts, Conan is crucified, tied to a tree and left to die in agony. In Milius' script, Conan is saved by Subotai, but in Stone's script, it is Valeria and Janus, the leader of the freebooters. Conan recognizes Janus as one of the mercenary that raided and killed his tribe. He provokes him into a fight, kills him and becomes leader of the freebooters. In Milius' script, Conan is brought back to the Mound of Kings and healed by the Good Wizard incantations. In this scene, Milius uses the famous dialogue from Baelith, the Queen of the Black Coast, where she tells Conan that her love is so strong she will come back from death to aid him. In Stone's script, Conan, Valeria, and their freebooters raid caravans in search for money and wealth. The love scene between Conan and Valeria happens in page 88. In Milius' script, Conan, Valeria, and Subotai go back to the Mountain of Power and sneak into a great cave. Inside, they see trolls, Neanderthals practicing sex and cannibalism. They save King Osric Dollar but fail to kill Thulsa Doom, who changes into a giant snake and flees through a hole. Unfortunately, while escaping, Valeria is fatally wounded by Doom's poisoned arrow. In Stone's script, Conan convinces Valeria and the freebooters to go and loot Shadizar. They enter the city and see that slavery, fear, disease, and hunger are everywhere. Stone here describes a nightmarish vision. Execution performed by giant white furry mutants, three-headed mongrel dogs, childs half human, half insect, snakes riding and feasting on mounds of skulls and bodies. That is some R-rated stuff in here, expensive and visually challenging to do at the time. A beggar tells Conan that Doom's troops have left and are now besieging the kingdom of Aquilonia. He helps him sneak into the palace through the sewers. In Milius' script, Conan, Subotai, and the Good Wizard dig and set traps for the battle to come. Conan prays to Crom to grant him revenge. Here, Milius reused Stone dialogue in page 116 and made it his own. The next scene or climax is the Battle of the Mounds, where Doom and his men attack Conan and his friends. In Stone's script, Valeria, as a distraction, passes herself off as a silk trader. She is horrified by the sight of Taramis copulating with the mutant Brack. In the meantime, Conan frees Princess Yasmina from her prison. In Milius' script, Conan fights Rexor, Doom's right-hand man. Valeria, as she promised him, comes back from the dead to aid him. All his men dead, Doom flees to his mountain. In Stone script, hundreds of freebooters attack the palace to help Valeria. Conan fights Brack for the second time and after a brutal fight slays him. Valeria kills Taramis. In Milius' script, in the final scene, Conan gets to the Temple of Doom and confronts him. A battle of will ensues. Doom tries to hypnotize Conan but fails. With his father's broken sword, Conan ultimately cut off Doom's head in front of his followers. He then sets Doom's temple on fire. In Stone script, two mutants escaping from Shadowzar ride off to find Thulsa Doom and inform him of what happened. Doom decides to march back with his army to kill everyone. The last scene in Milius' script, evidently cut out in the editing process, is Conan parting ways with Subutai and telling him that one day he will be king by his own hand. In Stone script, Yasmina gives Conan the command of her armies. Knights, archers, pikemen, mercenaries, men and women unite to fight Doom's army. Unlike Milius' minimalistic and personal climax, Stone's final battle is quite ambitious and is of epic proportions. Stone describes a large-scale battle between Princess Yasmina's army and Doom's mutants. Amid explosions shaking the earth, legion of flies and insects, Conan leads his army against pig, hyena, and insect-headed mutants, and even leather-winged harpies. Yasmina's army is joined by 500 freebooters. Conan and Valeria fight alone, killing hordes of mutants. Thulsa Doom, taking the shape of a gargoyle with 4 scaly arms and wings, attacks Conan. As the two fight, Doom's torso and head stretches and changes into a 6-foot serpent. Conan ultimately swings his sword and sends Doom's head flying. Set rises from the earth and with his tentacles collects the head and body of Doom, then takes them with him into the cracks of the earth. In the last scenes, Conan is about to marry Princess Yasmina and become a king, but he changes his mind. He rides back to Valeria, and then they ride out together with the freebooters. In conclusion, as we've seen, Stone's script was epic and ambitious, but difficult to finance. The VFX at the time weren't evolved enough to bring Stone's vision into the big screen. Stone was quite faithful in adapting Howard's stories and translating Conan's personality and mannerisms. However, the story seems a bit fragmented and focused. It is not his fault, he did the best he could. You see, the problem is Howard's best work is mainly short stories. So if you try to combine unrelated short stories into a single one, the movie's plot becomes episodic and unfocused. And if you adapt one single short story, you have to create additional scenes, events, and characters. And that is difficult and not always successful. Did Milius see that? Maybe, but for sure he rewrote Stone's script according to budget constraints and managed to simplify and unify the movie's plot by focusing only on Conan and his journey. Unfortunately, he wasn't completely faithful to Howard's character as Stone did. As most scholars pointed out, his Conan is a naive barbarian resigned to his own slavery, a passive character undergoing through ordeals. The original Conan is the opposite of that. He is an active, rebellious, and cunning character who would go through man, beast, wizards, and creatures, even topple entire kingdoms. Both scripts follow Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. In Milius' case, the story fits most of the essential stages. The first stage is separation. Conan's tribe is wiped out and he becomes a slave. The second stage is initiation. Conan goes through the wheel of pain, pit fights, and gladiator's training. The third stage is crossing the threshold. Conan gains his freedom and is chased by wolves. The fourth stage is going through a series of tests: the Witch Hut, the Snake Tower, the Temple of Doom. The fifth stage is meeting allies and helpers. Conan meets Subotai, Valeria, and the Good Wizard. The sixth stage is transformation through ordeal. Conan is crucified at the Tree of Woe. The seventh stage is apostasis, where Conan is resurrected and healed. Stage 8 is reward. Conan, Valeria, and Subotai enter Doom's caves and save King Osric's daughter. Stage 9 is the setback. Doom kills Valeria. The 10th stage is the climax, which is the Battle of the Mounds, and later Conan killing Doom. The final stage is mastery. Conan solves the Riddle of Steel and gains wisdom. He prefers to be king by his own hand. The two writers' styles are different. While Stone is very wordy and sometimes ambiguous, Milius is clear, concise, and to the point, just like Howard's prose. He favors visual storytelling and has a knack for clear-cut dialogue. Stone's script is good, but it is basically a simple revenge story, sprinkled with adventure and fantastical elements. Milius goes beyond the basic revenge story. Yes, all the necessary sword and sorcery elements are there, but he managed to make it much more than that. Conan, along his journey to avenge the death of his parents, will gain warrior skills and knowledge, find friendship and love, and ultimately solve the Riddle of Steel. The brilliance of Milius as a writer and director is that he blended heroic fantasy with philosophical and religious themes. It is not something new for the genre, at least not in the literary field, but it's not often done in cinema since it concentrates more on the spectacular and fantastical side of it. What sets Milius' movie apart is that all this is done with ingenious subtlety, fewer words, and more visual storytelling, heightened with great music, which gives it a powerful impact, and this is what encapsulates pure cinema. The Riddle of Steel. Where does it come from? What inspired it? It is no secret that Milius is a fan of the Russian director Eisenstein. The raid on the Cimmerian tribe is visually inspired by the invasion of the Russian city by the German Catholic Army in Eisenstein's movie Alexander Nevsky. The Riddle of Steel is also taken from there, a mere 9 seconds dialogue amidst a big battle sequence. And here it is.
Не в закалке дело. Ведь с плечом крепок.
The brilliance of Milius again is that he took one sentence, linked it to Nietzsche's philosophical notion, and made it a major theme running throughout the whole movie. From the start, Milius introduces us to Nietzsche's quote, "That which does not kill us makes us stronger." But what it is, actually? What does it mean? What does it have to do with the Riddle of Steel? It might be complicated, and subject to many interpretations. Steel, to be strong, sharp, and unbreakable, has to go under many repeated stages: heating, water cooling, hammering, and sharpening, just like the making of a samurai sword. We might see it as a symbol to the human condition. Men have to go through difficult obstacles to become stronger. The obstacles can be external or internal. It might be dangerous enemies or environment, bad events, or simply the inner self or inner demons. As Conan's father suggests, steel is a strong, reliable tool, unlike fragile, untrusty humans. With it, you can literally hack your way through anything, almost anything. But Conan must solve its mystery. Doom will reveal to Conan later that flesh is stronger than steel. Steel is nothing without the hands that wields it. In other words, without the strength and the experimented hand of a seasoned warrior who went through extensive training and numerous battles, just like Conan did, a sword is useless. Certainly it is deadly, but still it is just an inert, lifeless object. But this is only half of the mystery. Since Doom does not seek steel or use a sword anymore, his power does not come from his physical strength, but his will and ability to control and push people to do his bidding. Doom will hint at the real answer. It is will and desire that comes through ordeals. It is stronger than physical might, and it is the will to survive that made Conan who he is. The will to power, as in Nietzsche's conception of the Übermensch, the overman that overcome and triumph over everything alone by the force of his will. Indeed, Conan, by the force of his will, survived the wheel of pain and gained strength. He survived the gladiator's pit and gained fighting experience, but mostly as the crowd cheered him, he realized his sense of worth. He mastered and later was rewarded with learning the secrets of Eastern sword fighting, philosophy, and poetry. He survived the wolf chase and obtained the Atlantean sword from the giant king. He survived the witch demon, got a hint at his future as a king, and an indication to go to Zamora, where the snake cult is. He survived the Tree of Woe and gained even more determination. He lost his beloved Valeria, but endured, and won against Thulsa Doom's henchmen. And finally, he broke Doom's spell and killed him. It's like every ordeal prepared him and gave him either strength or a revelation to face another obstacle, to finally face his enemy and accomplish his quest, get his revenge, and fulfill his destiny. I think we'll stop here for now. I am trying to keep the videos under 30 minutes since longer videos seems to be hard to watch and follow. We will continue the themes analysis, among other things, in a second video. See you soon in part 2 of the definitive review and analysis of Conan the Barbarian.